The second primetime Republican debate had one thing the first debate did not, and that is Carly Fiorina. The former Silicon Valley CEO held much of the attention on last night's crowded stage, and she's getting high marks this morning for her performance. Carly Fiorina is with us from the Ronald Reagan Presidential Library. Good morning, Carly. Good to see you.
Good morning. Nice to be with all of you.
I know you pushed hard to get on that debate stage last night. Given your performance last night, do you expect a surge in the polls?
Well, I certainly hope we'll see movement in the polls. You know, going into that debate, half the audience had never heard my name and didn't know I was running for president. So it was a big opportunity for me to introduce myself to the American people, to many of the American people, and I'm very happy I had that opportunity.
Beyond the polls, what will this add to your campaign? Are fundraisers reaching out to you?
Well, yes, I think, you know, what we saw in the last debate, August 6th, where less than 40% of the people had heard my name, what we saw was a big bump in fundraising. We saw a bump in the polls, and I suspect and hope that we'll see the same thing out of this debate.
What happens to Trump candidacy based on what happened last night?
Oh, I don't know. That's up to voters to decide.
Carly Fiorina, many people are saying that you dropped the microphone, if you will. That means she had a really great night. Everyone's talking about your performance. In particular, that the way you responded to Donald Trump's very unkind remarks to you. You could have gone many ways, and you chose not to go after him. Why?
You know, I think I made my point crystal clear. And I think women in America understand that it is still different for women, that we're scrutinized differently. The truth is that a woman's appearance should never be the subject of conversation, particularly in a presidential campaign.
You were the only one on the stage that said you wouldn't put a woman on the $10 or $20 bill. I think that surprised a lot of people. And then when they heard your answer, Carly, a lot of people said, hey, I like what she's thinking. Why did you take that position?
Well, because I think politics is full of empty gestures. And people are tired of empty gestures. Honestly, it's an empty gesture to put a woman's face on a $10 or a $20 bill when 3.5 million more women have fallen into poverty in the last 6 years. It's an empty gesture when the burdens of poverty or single parenthood fall most heavily on women. It's an empty gesture when we're not yet tapping the full potential of every man and woman in this country, and we're not, and that is why I'm running for president.
What would you do as president about the refugee crisis?
You know, it's a very heartbreaking situation, obviously. And certainly, if we have people who truly are fleeing persecution, we ought to allow them to go through the processes in this country to receive asylum, and we are doing that. On the other hand, we cannot welcome everyone from who are seeking economic opportunity if we cannot guarantee that they're not terrorists. However, with regard to the humanitarian crisis, which has been made much worse by the fact that President Obama and Secretary of State Clinton have no strategy in Syria, they've done nothing for 3 years, and so when you fail to lead, your options disappear. But we ought to be playing a major role in a humanitarian relief effort, and I do think that the United States needs to lead, and I would lead as President of the United States, a global effort to go after human traffickers once and for all. Human trafficking is on the rise all over the world. Many of these people are sold a bill of goods, tragically, by human traffickers who then take their money and, unfortunately, too often, their lives. We need to crack down on human trafficking wherever it is, and clearly there is a lot moving people from the Middle East into Europe.
All right, Carly Fiorina, we thank you for taking the time joining us this morning.
Thanks for having me.
You're welcome.